Morning to all participants. We will be starting our session in the next 5 minutes. Thank you for joining in. Welcome to all our participants. Good afternoon to our speaker from Australia. Thank you for joining us for this exclusive masterclass for CBSE school leaders on digital and social media strategies for schools. My name is Aditi Agarwal and I work for Australian Trade and Investment Commission in India. I will start with some housekeeping information. Today's session will be for a duration of 1 hour and 30 minutes. This session is also being live streamed on CBSE Academic YouTube channel. So if any of you are facing technical issues, request you to please visit the link shown on the screen. At the end of the session, we will be taking questions. In order to ask questions, please type your question in the chat window in the right side of the panel or use the live chat session if you're attending through YouTube channel. Austrade is recording this webinar and will be sharing the recorded version of the session after the session. Please note that audio quality may fluctuate during the webinar. In case you have audio related issues, please check your headset and audio settings. And if the issue still persists, please disconnect and connect back again. In case of any network disruptions, please stay online. We will connect back in a few minutes. Australian government has been taking initiatives to support the sector during the challenging start of 2020. We have launched Australia Virtual Masterclass Series, partnering with some of the finest Australian institutions, universities to introduce you to Australia's quality education and enable you to smoothly transition to online teaching. The professional development series for school leaders started last week and we will continue until the end of June and all locations are welcome to join. We believe it is a great campaign which can unite the education community during this difficult time. A big thank you to Dr. Biswajit Saha and the Central Board of Secondary Education for extending support to our program. If you would like a deeper experience of Australian education during lockdown, you can discover the wealth of educational expertise Australia has to offer by searching for the Study Australian collection on the Future Learn platform. Austrade will also be launching the 2020 edition of Schools Video Competition soon. We will keep you posted on the dates and details of the competition. In this competition, we have had the brightest and talented students showcase their knowledge across various topics where they create videos and upload the same on YouTube. The winners have traveled to Australia in the past, and this year we will be back with more excitement. I would now like to introduce our academic for today, Dr. Paul Harrigan. Dr. Paul Harrigan is an associate professor at the University of Western Australia Business School, teaching more than 1,700 students per semester, both on campus and via live stream on Facebook in the growing importance of digital marketing. Originally from Ireland, Dr. Harrigan's research has extended to a range of issues in social media marketing, including customer engagement, customer relationship management, customer privacy issues, and corporate social responsibility. He is widely published in more than 30 journals across the globe and provides expert opinions for major media outlets such as ABC News, The Weekend West, The Australian, and The Business Spectator. Dr. Harrigan is an active consultant to several organizations advising how to build and implement a social media marketing strategy. Over to you, Dr. Paul.
Thank you very much, Aditi, for the introduction, and welcome everyone to this session. Before I jump into my presentation for today, thank you all for joining. Basically, I'm going to talk about digital and specifically social media. We're not going to get into the tactics of exactly how to do it. It's more going to be an overview of the strategic level change that is needed. I will try and make it interactive, so we can use the chat function for that. I've already sent a little hello message there. So when I ask any questions, if you could pop them in the chat, if you're watching on WebEx, if you're watching on YouTube Live, there's so many people, we could only fit a certain number on WebEx. Please put that in the comments in YouTube Live, and one of the team will share those questions with me. We will also have time at the end for questions, but I will check it every so often during the presentation as well. I'm not sure how many people is actually here, but I know we had almost 10,000 signed up. So Another thing is just keep the mics on mute if that's okay. Otherwise, I'll be overwhelmed with questions and comments. So hopefully you can follow everything. I'll try and talk for 45 minutes to an hour. And we'll go through these different sections that you can see on my screen. Hopefully everyone can hear. So I'll just go into a slideshow. Yeah, so my background is, you can see it here on Twitter. Please follow me or connect on LinkedIn if you're not on Twitter. But saying as you tuned in for a social media session, I guess that maybe you're active on social media already. I'll ask that question in a second. But yeah, my background is social media research. I'm an associate professor at the University of Western Australia. I'm also an adjunct professor at ESEG Business School in France. I used to work in Southampton in the UK, and I did my PhD in 2008, finished it 2008 back in Ireland. So if you could pick up the accent, it's an Irish accent, not an Australian. I am an editor, associate editor at the Journal of Marketing Management, which publishes work around digital marketing, and vice president of the Australia New Zealand Marketing Academy. So I keep myself busy. And what I try and do is create a personal brand on social media to share interesting things around digital marketing trends, whether that's in higher education or more generally. So that's a bit about me. Today, what I would like you to do is watch a video. I am not going to play it because that could get really messy, but I will put the link in the chat. And if you just watch it for a couple of minutes and then post any thoughts you have, like what you find interesting, what you find surprising, post it in the chat. Now, obviously, if there's thousands of people, I can't respond to everyone, so apologies in advance. But yeah, for the next couple of minutes, Nea's already put the link in the chat. Thank you. Just watch that video in your own time and then post some questions, comments about it, and then we'll move on with the presentation. Okay, so some people have watched the video already, which is good. Just you have the link to watch it again in the future, and you can perhaps share this with some of your colleagues, because it is one of the most succinct videos to basically underpin what we call digital transformation. And that is what you need to understand about jumping into digital or even social media. It's not something that is tactical. It's something that you have to have the right culture for in the first place. So a few points that people said, yes, Facebook having the largest world population kind of hits at home. You know, social media is at 1, at 2, at 3, at 4, and then we get China. So that's pretty interesting. I think someone else talked about addiction. Yeah, so that maybe it comes back to, you know, this one here where today's college students have never licked a postage stamp. It's pretty interesting. Another thing I found interesting is this. In 2020, so this year, the average person will have more conversations with bots than with their spouse, which is pretty crazy. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Other people are saying we need to get ready to adapt very fast. Yes, that's true. You know, so if we go a bit further on, well, that's a funny stat as well. But it gives you some information here about 93% of buying decisions are influenced by social media. And so by buying decisions, that any purchase decision or any life decision, you will jump onto social media, and that includes students, both current and future, and they will make decisions based on social media. And that's not based on content that brands or organizations put on social media. It's based on content that peers put on social media. So that's this influencer trend. And I don't mean celebrities. I just mean if I'm a student, I go onto social media, I want to see content from other students. It's them that I will trust. I will not trust advertising on social media. That's simply not how social media works. And it comes back to this culture shift that I'll get into. Is one of the other things. Yeah. So we don't have a choice whether we digitally transform. The choice is how well we do it. And this guy, if you want to follow him and you're interested in this, it's called Eric Qualman. Basically says that the return on investment of this digital transformation is that your organization will still exist in 5 years. So rather than looking for digital and social to get you more business, it's basically something you need to be doing to survive. So that's super important. Somebody asked, why is it called the blue sky age? It's because there are so many opportunities with this. But if you approach this like traditional media, like TV, like press, or you even use the features that these social networks encourage you to use, like paying for ads, sponsoring posts without thinking it through, creating the right type of content, there's lots of threats as well. Somebody's talking about decreasing attention span in students. Yeah, I mean, I teach a lot of students and they're always multi-screening, things like that. We'll not get into the issue of how it affects actual education. I'm more talking to you about higher education marketing. So jumping back to the presentation, if you want to put in the comments, and we can jump back to them, like your kind of experience with social media, you know, to market your own institutions, your own schools. I see people saying the names of their schools in the chat. So any problems you have, what kind of level of expertise, any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll come back to it in a second. So transformation is something that was mentioned in the video, and this is, unfortunately, it's not easy to do this. Everyone thinks that Facebook's easy. You can go on, you can set up an account, you know, you can pay for ads quite easily, set up a business page. You can do that on LinkedIn, you can do that on Twitter, you can do that on any social media channel, but it's actually quite deceptive that that's all you need to do, because the real challenge is what content will you post on there? Okay, so if you do not have a plan that would take you over the next year of content, I don't mean specific posts, but I mean a kind of narrative or an idea or a thread of things that you can post that would be helpful to your potential or current audience, then do not go onto social media. And in most cases, having that idea for content requires a mindset shift in your organization, because the current mindset tends to be, we need more customers and more students, so we will promote what we currently do and tell people how good we are. Unfortunately, no one cares how good you are. People that follow social media want a benefit from that, and there's two main benefits. They want to be educated or entertained. So basically, you have to start giving things away for free. And I'll show you some examples, both from within higher education, college education, high school, and outside in other commercial organizations, of the types of content that you have by default by doing business. I mean, a school is a center of knowledge. That knowledge can be shared in the classroom, but you can also share some of that knowledge online. And that's why people will follow your pages. They will not follow your pages to see ads saying that you're a top school, or, you know, you've got this employability record, or this is what your former students did. You really have to help people. So it's interesting, there's quite a split here of the types of organizations that do want to transform their culture to share that type of information. So this is some research by Smart Insights, a really good organization to follow in the UK. There's 1,000 respondents here. So 31% are planning to introduce a digital transformation program. So this is not schools, this is more broadly. 24% have just started, and 10% have already had it. So well over half are transforming their organization so that they're better able to post educational or entertaining content on social media, and to be able to respond to people that post. So that's another thing. It's now we're talking two-way interaction, and you have to be up for that. You cannot post on social media and think something will go viral or get any engagement at all if you're not willing to interact with people. So only a third, just over a third, have no plans to run digital transformation. So I say unfortunately because it's a lot of work, okay, to buy into this. Just going to look in the chat a second to see if there's any questions. Obviously, I can't answer all of them, but yeah, so what's the proper way to post on a page to get maximum likes? I'll cover that in a second. Mass media coverage suggests some best options. I'll talk about things in a second, but I really want you to get behind this mindset of what story your organization could tell. So I'll come back to the chat in a second once we go through. So what I'm talking about here is a thing called inbound marketing. Right, so this philosophy is called inbound marketing, and that is opposed to outbound marketing. Outbound marketing is when I am a brand or an organization and I want to reach a mass of customers, so I just want to tell them what I do and how good I am. Now, that worked in the past when customers were a captive audience and on a non-social channel, but it does not work now. People are on social media to be social. It is their social personal space. They do not want interruptive ads. If you think about yourselves, the kind of organizations that you follow on social media are the kind of ones that help you. You know, if I follow another business school, so I work in a business school, if I follow another business school, it's because they post interesting updates about the research that they're doing that actually helps me. I'm in digital marketing. If I follow a digital marketing agency on social media, it's because they're posting the latest stats, such as this on the screen. You know, so I get this from social media. This is from a digital marketing agency. That's the kind of thing that they post. They do not post an ad saying how good their agency is. They do research and they post interesting material. So just a reminder, this presentation is about higher education marketing. It's not about how we teach, you know, digitally. So it's kind of an interesting but important difference. So if I'm doing digital marketing, most people want to increase their brand awareness and their brand health. Okay. They want to get new leads, so they want to access potential new customers for you guys, students. They want to deliver a customer experience. And they want to increase awareness and sentiment around new products. So if we think about the top one is not more money, more sales. And that is because that's not what digital does primarily. Primarily, digital increases your brand awareness, so more people know about you. And the only way it does that if you share interesting content, which I'll show in a second, and your brand health. Brand health is a new concept, which basically it's the positive image of your brand as someone who gives on social media. Remember, social media is a social space. So if you jump on there and just want people to look at your ad or come to your school, you're not giving anything. You're expecting people to give you something. What you need to do is share educational, maybe some entertaining posts over a long period of time, and that increases your brand health. You want to be seen as someone who gives on social media and provides relevant information. So again, the main learning point from just reading chat popping up from this is that it's not immediately about getting sales, it's about brand health. And if we jump into more detail around that, which one area is the single most exciting opportunity for your organization in 2020? Now, this is from nearly 5,000 respondents across the world, so Asia Pacific, which includes India, Europe, Middle East, Africa, and North America. So bearing in mind that brand health thing, the main priority, as you can see again, is optimizing the customer experience, creating compelling content, and then into data, using data to analyze. And that's something else we'll talk about, because one of the main benefits of being on digital, if you share useful content and people engage, you can then analyze that to say, well, this content worked well. This content did not work well. This person may be an influencer. This person could co-create the next set of content with me. Data-driven marketing is very important. So again, you see here, exciting opportunity. You have to think at a level beneath, I want to get more students or more customers or whatever. I want to affect my bottom line. You have to think, how do we do that? And first is optimizing customer experience. And the way to do that is create compelling content. So that's the educational, entertaining thing for a digital experience, because you want someone to follow you because they find you interesting. No one will ever buy something without following some account over the long term. So to get someone to follow you in the long term, you have to create compelling content for digital experiences. Only then will they go through a customer journey, the decision-making path that will lead them to come to you or recommend you or whatever. And this one here, it brings out, it's the same research, but obviously a smaller sample size, because we narrow down to different countries. So we have India in yellow, China in blue, and Australia and New Zealand in grey. So which three digital related areas are your top priorities again in 2020? So now we're up with analytics. So how do we analyze what we're doing on social media? And content marketing, slightly less so for India, but content marketing is another area I'm really going to jump into. It's linked to the thread I'm talking about so far. So rather than being outbound and promoting ourselves, we want to be inbound and get people to follow us because we're providing valuable content. That approach, that tactic is content marketing. Okay. So if these things are not your priorities, you're not at that stage of being wanting to transform to be able to be on digital. Because if digital is just another channel to promote, it will not work. And we see these failures all the time. People say there's no ROI, it doesn't lead to sales. That's because they're just advertising, and advertising on its own does not work. So what do I mean by inbound, outbound? Maybe you're a bit confused about what that means. First of all, like, what business are you in? Okay, so you have to understand that. And that sounds a simple question, but it's actually quite complicated. So here are some examples of different companies throughout the world. So we have Xerox. When you think of Xerox, what you see is photocopiers. That's what you see in your head, right? So that's the product definition. We make copying equipment. So two problems here. One, people will not always need copying equipment. Two, what content would they create about copying equipment? So when they set up their social media accounts, even their websites are also part of social now because it has to be sharing content. If you're just talking about photocopiers, you're going to run out of content very quickly. But if you think of yourselves from a market perspective, what they're actually doing is helping improve office productivity. Now, that's a significant shift in mindset, both that will ensure business survival because office productivity will always be central. So it allows them to diversify away from photocopiers into consultancy, into other technologies. But also when you're thinking about providing content and engaging people online, suddenly you can start to run webinars, you can write white papers, you can do case studies, all around office productivity. That's digital transformation. That's the mindset you need. If Xerox just shows pictures of photocopiers and says ours is the best in the world, buy here, who cares? If they provide case studies about who they've worked with to improve productivity, people then care. And the other thing to remember is you don't want to reach a mass market. You need to identify a niche, okay? Because you need to identify a small number of people that care enough and engage with you. Those people will be your voice online. Remember what I said at the start, people trust their peers more. So you want to get people sharing your content so that other people see it. I'll show you a nice illustration of that. Another example I'll cover quickly is Encyclopedia Britannica. Who's got an encyclopedia? I'll not look in the chat for the answer, but very few of us, right? Because if your business is selling encyclopedias, you're out of business. But also, what do you talk about online? If you distribute information, that's something new entirely. You can create lots of content around this. You can see this with Google. Google are on social media, Wikipedia, sharing useful information all the time. So I'm just going to jump into the chat and see if there's any questions. I'm sure there's a lot of questions. So there's a few questions about how this is useful for you as a teacher. Again, this is not, I'm not giving tips on how to teach with digital. I'm giving tips on how to market with digital because schools need marketing as much as any other organization. I'm not talking about big budgets either. I'm not talking about any budget to promote anything. Okay, so content, right? So we talk about inbound, which is that shift. You have a product definition like we provide education, or what's your market definition? We help people progress their careers, because that's two different things. Obviously, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, you would need to employ me as a consultant for more in-depth information. So the types of content you can use, I will go through, but there are lots of companies investing in what's called content marketing. This is recent research from the end of last year. Does your company actively invest in content marketing? So content marketing is creating blog posts, podcasts, videos, images, Instagram stories, all this type of things for all organizations. There is no organization in the world for which content marketing is not appropriate. So how important is content marketing? 70% of all marketing people. So very important, extremely important. That's really significant. What primary forms of media? As I said, blogs, videos, infographics, case studies, ebooks, white papers, checklists, interviews. All these types of things are very different from traditional advertising copy. You don't put together a nice, simple ad on Facebook or Twitter and put it out there to say that our organization's the best or whatever. You need to put more effort in now, unfortunately. But the rewards are a lot higher if you do. And Facebook is still a dominant channel for this type of thing, as you can see. So if you're sitting thinking, well, what type of content could I use? So I'm a senior manager in a school or a principal or whatever. Are there ideas where I could share things on our social media channels to improve the engagement of our current students, or to try and get new students, or improve engagement of parents? Whatever, you need to have a set goal. Here's a nice little matrix that shows you entertaining, quizzes, competitions, videos, games. It's called gamification. Through to education, probably more relevant. Articles. You can be creating your own articles about approaches to education, or how we take students from here to here, or you can share stuff from educational bodies. That's called curating content, and that's super important on social media because it embeds you in a network. Because you're sharing stuff from other schools or educational bodies, or even internationally. You share their stuff, they share your stuff. Great for your brand health. And so we have infographics, we have guides, simple things, for parents. How do you get involved? How do you move schools? Tips for revision, all these types of things. Convincing people, checklists, calculators. This is big in the financial services. Case studies in higher education, that can be of student success. You can do interviews with students. And inspiring is reviews. You need to have reviews. So I don't mean testimonials. I mean like reviews on your social media, so you get a star rating, so people are talking about you. That's really, really important. And forums is also important, where people can ask questions. Because sometimes, rather than people asking questions of you, other people, like advocates of your brand, of your organization, can answer those questions for you. If you think of all the top brands in the world, when you jump online with a problem, it's other people that are solving those issues. So community forums are really important to create that sense of engagement among parents, among students, among community stakeholders. So some examples outside education. So Adobe is really good. They have a chief marketing officer blog, and they share all types of things. So Adobe makes software, right? From a product definition, we sell software. From a market definition, we help senior marketing people, marketing managers, do their job. So we have articles here, how to get the most out of influencer marketing. Are you a digitally savvy leader? So putting lots of effort into sharing features, interviews, opinion pieces. We're running conferences, all these types of things to communicate and engage with people. Nothing is promoted there. Okay? Really, really essential that you understand to move away from promotion and create information. That takes more effort. Another thing I will say is that doing events, so these kind of conferences, events in the school, you have to do things offline so that they create content for online. I'll show you an example in a second. This is accounting software. Tends to be super boring. Again, we've got little blog posts by different people, inviting people to write things. That could be teachers, it could be key students, it could be parents. Important issues that are happening among your community that are relevant to your community. So we're not promoting the software, which is over on the side. Somebody asked, does educational institutions need marketing? Yes. Yes, you do. Every institution needs to be, from a digital perspective, on social media, engaging the community. If you watch the video, remember I said at the start, the return on investment of doing this stuff is that you will still exist. Because you do not want to come to a point where you fall off a cliff where people are choosing other organizations because they've got a really good online presence. This is an interesting one. This is a little startup bank. So they allow free international transfers. So moving to Pakistan, a guide for expats. And you can see this is really good in blog posts, the date, the length of read, and the tag. And so this company, instead of like saying, we transfer money cheaply, they may do the odd post around that, but they also share useful information, which is based on a lot of our users seem to live in Pakistan. They're expats there. This is a useful article. By posting this, another thing it does, it gets you high in Google. sharing this type of information. Google loves that. It comes back to that brand health and that giving. Google does not like if you try to go on and just take and talk about yourself. If you do this right, you have to treat your brand, your organization like a person. If you just talk about yourself all the time as a person, people stop listening. This is a digital marketing agency. So instead of talking about what they do, they let a little post. You have $100 to spend. Here's one way to spend it. They do little posts about any updates to Instagram, how to create video, simple little things. It seems so simple, but that's inbound. Outbound would be just telling us about what they do, which is very tempting, but not valuable. So I looked up a couple of education examples for you from across the world. And before I jump into that, I'll just look in the chat. Okay, so there's a lot of questions about how to teach using digital, which is not the purpose of the presentation. This is digital strategies for schools for at a higher level, so kind of management or marketing. People asking India, population newly exposed to digital, which social platform is best told to currently target the Indian audience? Well, I think Facebook is still really relevant, but Instagram's really good for if your target demographic is young people. What do you think about blogging? Do you think school blogs have scope? Is YouTube a better portal? I mean, if you have the resources, do both. I'm showing YouTube at the moment, but if I had to choose, a blog would be an easier way to start. You can get guest bloggers in. Your teachers can say, here's, some of the latest maths things that we're teaching, or here's the new curriculum, and just little simple updates. People love that kind of stuff. They love to feel part of your community. So this is Hope College. And they have a hashtag keeping hope. So during COVID-19, they go around and they use their hashtag to show what their current students are doing in coronavirus times. Very simple, but a really cool way to engage people. There's no sales pitch here. Another nice one is advice from seniors to first-year students. That works well for any educational institution. Another video, first-year residential life. So first years telling, so people coming to your high school or whatever, their experience of transitioning from previous school. It's just simple, short interviews. It takes a bit of time to record them and post edit and post the content, but that's what you get. That's what you need to do. That's the effort that's required. Another one is from the US, and it's called Concordia College, and I looked on their Instagram. I'll show you a website link in a second that gives you examples you can jump on in your own time. So one thing I noticed with them is they've got a little hashtag for alumni, and that's a really interesting one. So where have your people ended up? So you feature people. So somebody graduated last year, they're now at university here, or graduated 10 years ago and they're now a senior manager, or they're doing well in politics or whatever. You go and you talk to that person, you do a little interview, or you just do a feature of a photograph and you use that like alumni stories or something. People really engage with that type of thing. And you can see here at the top, getting involved in Black Lives Matter, so being relevant, different things. So summer on campus, graduation, seniors, all this types of stuff. I'm not saying to do all of this, but if you change your mindset away from promotion to building community engagement, you can do some of this quite quickly. And I mentioned earlier about actually doing things offline. So digital only works if you're doing good stuff, because if you're not doing good stuff, what do you talk about online? This is another college that I found, and they have a program or an initiative, hashtag Lead Like a Girl. Okay, so they ran a conference for risk takers and change makers, particularly for girls. It's really super on trend, great initiative. And they made the effort to run this type of program in an offline setting, so on campus. And that creates lots of stories online, lots of engagement, people sharing it, people asking questions. Like this webinar, for example, I'm doing this. A lot of the value we'll get from comments and people sharing it afterwards. So you have to put in the effort to create this content. And this college won an award actually for this initiative. So again, it's not promotional, it's making an effort, and it's part of the school's principles and values anyway. So why not do this kind of thing? And if you're already doing it, why not talk about it? I'll just click through every slide is a hyperlink. So this is a couple of years ago, but if I click into it, I'll open up the website just to scroll for you. So there's some really good tips here. This is a really good website, Higher Education Marketing. That obviously applies to universities, but you can drop that down a level to schools, high schools, primary schools, whatever. And they're talking about telling stories in higher education, in education. So there's different charts here about that's Snapchat. This is Instagram. So Instagram, as I said, for the young audience is essential. Student takeovers, for example, letting students share their voice. Remember that peer experience, that peer knowledge sharing is really essential. Showcasing local attractions. So your school is in a community, in a city, right? Join up with other bodies, other organizations, share their events, they'll share yours. It's really important to be part of that community online as well as offline. Featuring staff and faculty is really important too. So, little short interviews with, not just teachers, but like the admissions people, sharing their experiences. That's really, really valuable, really, really humanizes your brand. Another website for you to check out is this one. And this is really recent, so we have COVID-19 unfortunately happening, and I hope everyone's keeping safe. But this is some examples of social media posts from schools during this time. I'll just click through again so you can see that. I'll leave that open. I'm just going to see the chat. Okay, so someone's Naya saying participants facing challenge reading the slides on YouTube. Any chance of zooming in? I'll take a look at that. But yeah, this is another thing. So you can see some really specific posts here. Use photos and videos, that's essential in real time. So not like really staged things, just taking pictures of what's happening around the school. That's really useful. Replying to people on comments, having a branded hashtag is really important. Yeah, it's what even families are looking for. So you can read that article in your own time if you're interested. You can see the link at the top. Just close this. I'm not sure that I can zoom in too much more than this. And a lot of my slides are just images anyway, so we'll see if that helps people watching on YouTube. So those are just some examples of content that fits the mindset of being inbound, being part of a community, sharing useful information. You might think, well, how am I going to do all this? So you need this kind of strategy behind it. You need to have a thought about what we want to do. The first thing to do, and if you couldn't read the other slides, this is going to be difficult, but I don't want you to read this. What the purpose of this slide is to show you the plethora of technologies there are, and I don't want people to start with technology. Oh, I want to go on Facebook, or I want to use, what else have we got here? Google Ads, or, let's look, Hootsuite, all these types of things. That's the wrong place to start. You start with an idea, a philosophy of the type of story or stories that you can share. Okay, so the reason I'm showing this is because This is what overwhelms people. So many options. You commit to a technology and it leads you down the wrong path. It's about changing the philosophy, that digital transformation first. And this slide is important because you don't want to talk to the pink. You don't want to talk to the public. You want to talk to advocates at the bottom. Now, that's a trade-off because there are fewer advocates, but the issue is they already care and they will talk about your organization. So a simple way of thinking about that is, okay, I want to engage some students to write blog posts about their experience. What students do I approach? It's ones that are already engaging with you on social media. You don't approach some random students you are dubious about whether they're committed or what kind of job they will do. You pick key advocates. It's the same with parents. It's the same with community stakeholders. Get those people involved. Those people in green will talk to the people in pink. When you start trying to reach the people in pink, it's a mass. You will not know whether the content is working. People might like it, but they might not be relevant people. It's really, really a challenge, and people get seduced by the numbers up there at the top of, I want to reach as many people as possible. Like, I want to target that Facebook ad to everybody choosing high school this year. Wrong approach. So that's one key strategic point. Obviously, I haven't time to walk you through a whole strategy, but the second point is, and I've mentioned this already, share other content from other relevant sources. And that can be in two ways. Your local community, so, the local council, local government, local other sporting organizations, because they're in your local community. Okay, but they're not education. So online, follow other schools, best practice locally, internationally, share stuff from them. You'll learn what kind of content you can create. And also they'll be like, someone shared my content in India, I'm going to share theirs. That's really good, being part of that community, give, take. So embed yourself in your actual local community, in your city, but also online, embed yourself in your industry. And what that looks like on here is that you have your owned media, so the content you create on your website, on YouTube channel, whatever, people sharing that, okay? Then if they're sharing your stuff and you're sharing their stuff, we end up with earned media, and that is key, because that's when you start getting publicity from key influencers, key stakeholders, education bodies, universities. That's what's important. So it's not paying influencers, it's getting influencers' attention. Only then should you start paying, like the social media channels want you to promote posts, because you pay to promote the posts that got the earned media, pay to promote the posts that worked really well. That's how social media works. You start off with your own posts, they get shared, you share stuff from other people, we see what gets most attention, and then we pay to promote that further to the types of people that are already engaged. That's how it works. All right, I'm just going to jump into the last section, which is some ways to measure this, but I'll just look in the chat first, try to answer some questions. And a really good one is, what if you have followers, but they don't pay attention to your content? So I've worked for a lot of organizations, and that happens to me all the time. It's a long road to get engagement with followers. But again, if you think about that funnel, if you start working with key people, that's the best way. So if I am a school, I've got key parents, I've got key students, I've got key staff, I've other key influencers, guests are coming to talk. Identify who those people are and work with them, so that when you're posting your content up, there are key people who already know about it and who maybe helped you create it. They will then share it. Don't just create it in an office and then put it out there and think, well, everybody should like this, it's my best work. You have to engage people and involve them to start with. Can I please share my presentation? Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I'll just check with the organizers. They already have the link, so they can post it if they want. Another good question is, we're planning to introduce, a program, so like a new product in the next 2 months. So ideas to promote. So already it's a bit short term, right? So if you're wanting to just promote something on social media and you haven't got that relationship, you're going to interrupt and annoy people. So why should people on social media care about your new program if you haven't been engaging with them and built that relationship already? Share the types of content I've shown. If now suddenly you jump on because you want them to join something, that mindset is already a bit wrong. So for the next time, your next program next year, you have to start building up content now, not about it, but about your institution, your industry, sharing stuff, so that when you do want to promote something, people will be like, well, they've helped me a lot, and that might be interesting. But a lot of things do work short term. So if you really, really, really need to promote something, involve the key people, get the teachers, potential employers, do little videos, this is why this is important, blah, blah, blah. Like, really help people. Don't just promote it internally. Should we also maintain human touch? Yes. So do the things offline, run events, talk to real people, but record it, take pictures of it. That's what social media is about. Social is social. It gets a bad name, but ultimately the best organizations are social. They act like real people. Measurement. Just close that. So this is, as I said at the start, one of the main reasons for doing this. And if you're unsure of all of what I've talked about, if you just start posting some simple things, even responding to people's questions online, you can quickly get some data that can learn, hey, these are some questions that people care about. Let's change our website to adapt that. Or, people would like more of this type of content. So just listening. It's another thing. It's two-way. So ROI, return on investment, and this comes back to my very first point about inbound and being brand health, not sales. Only 35% said that understanding ROI is important, very important, or extremely. And that seems strange, but it's not strange, because the purpose of doing this is just part of business. It's just part of running your institution, running your organization. Having your community offline within the school walls is one thing. That community now has to be online, because that's where people want it. You see this with COVID, with the pandemic, people have moved online. Okay, I'm not talking about doing all your teaching online, but you can still share some materials online that will help people. It doesn't matter what the return on investment is. The return is that your business will be viable in 5 to 10 years, because a school is a business. Very, very simple. If you're on Twitter, you can analyze, how your posts do. So Paul Harrigan on Twitter, you saw me at the start. My hashtag is @Dr. Paul Harrigan. I'll check for new followers. 10,000 people maybe after today. So I see, well, this post got an engagement rate of 3.4%. This was 4%. You can see lots of others. So I can quickly see what's working, what's not working. Another thing I can see on here is who's engaging with me. Now, this engagement rate, only compare it with yourself. So your first post gets 1%, your second post gets 4%. That's a significant difference. Check what you did differently between the two and do what you did again for the 4% one. But this is all free and really interesting and cannot be ignored. And believe me, lots of people ignore it. If you ignore the data, that's when people won't engage with you. This is ANSMAX, the body that I work for, and this is on LinkedIn Analytics. So we can see people's traffic coming from different sources, their job functions. It's super interesting to me. That can frame the future content I post. So if people are in the media, that informs what they want to hear about from me. If they're in education, that gives you content suggestions. Again, LinkedIn will show you how your posts are doing. Super, super relevant. This is Facebook showing you how my posts are doing. So this is a teacher on Facebook, actually. It's this a course I teach, Introduction to Marketing. So I do short videos, shorter than this and more simplistic than this. This is quite high level stuff for first year students at university on digital marketing, consumer behavior. It wasn't matter. You could do this for languages, you could do it for science, for engineering, for math. And I can easily see which of my videos gets the most engagement, the most views. And then what I really should do is, okay, this topic is important to these people. The way I taught that week, I need to teach like that the following week. It's all about that learning and being flexible. And finally, analytics. Google Analytics is really important because you can then track traffic to your website. Now, if a lot of your traffic to your website is coming from social media, that's good, but it also means you need to improve your social media because that's your main source. And you can see here, organic search, people typing in the URL, people coming from other sites, people coming from social. So my job, this is for Ansmac again, is to lift this social up because only 2% of traffic to Ansmac's website is coming from social media, and I manage the social media, so I need to do better. Another thing Google can show you analytics-wise is where people, what pages people visit, when they come from social, when they come from search. That's really important too. So if we have a blog on our website and people are spending a lot of time there, that means it's working. Let's do more of it. So those are some simple, all free tools, very easy to jump in and look, see what you're doing well and see what you're not doing well. With these things, small steps, right? So if you just think, hey, we could run Q&A sessions on Instagram, or we could set up a Facebook group for parents to share their concerns. Those are simple steps towards taking an inbound approach that will get you down this path. Don't try and do too much too soon. So if you have any questions, any more questions, I'm happy to take them now. I think I'll actually take them verbally from one of the team members. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Paul, for such a fantastic masterclass. Few ideas like inviting guest bloggers, brilliant examples. I especially like the first video that you shared. We'll now welcome questions from the audience. In order to ask a question, you simply type your question in the chat window on the right side of the panel or put a comment under the YouTube live video. Few questions are already taken by Dr. Paul. The rest we are going to take now. I've already received a lot of questions in the chat video, in the chat box. Here is the first one. Um, how to make the digital content interesting for students who are already using, already used to traditional blackboard learning, especially in smaller towns, in the remote areas of India.
Okay, I'll just stop sharing my screen so you can see me again. Might
Thank you.
be, don't know whether that's a good thing or bad thing, but so how to use social media for students now? Again, I wonder if that's to educate students or to try and engage them, which is slightly different thing, but we can go with that anyway. I think it's the format of the content, so certainly at university where I teach, we moved online, the current situation, but I actually moved online before, and I didn't just take a 90-minute class, record it, and put it online. I chopped up the videos into little concept-based videos and put them online on a Facebook group, let people comment, answered questions immediately, this type of thing. So chopping it up into bite-size videos that people can watch whenever they want and being there, being able to interact with them. I actually got more engagement that way than if the people were sitting in the room. I'm not saying to go online 100% because what we still then do is we break those people into small groups and bring them in for face-to-face tutorials. But online is certainly very efficient and creating bite-sized content. And also what I do is I share content in that Facebook group from other universities, from other schools, from industry bodies. I'm not precious about they just need to hear from me. It's sharing information from other sources is really important.
Thank you. So going to the next question, how to make digital content interesting for um, students in the sense that there are focused learners on one side, so digital media marketing strategy works very well with them. But how about the digital marketing strategy to be implemented with average learners profile?
Yeah, that is a good question. Again, it's related to the online learning side of it. Um, I think breaking into smaller groups is really important. And again, using that analysis, if we can analyze who is asking questions, who is watching, using the data to see, well, these students aren't really participating in this Facebook group or whatever kind of group you use, it's quite easy then to reach out to them, because in a classroom you may be very busy and you may not see who's engaging. I don't know what class sizes most people are working with, but having that analytics online to say, hey, student A, B, and C are engaged a lot, students D and F are not engaged a lot, and you can easily then follow up with them and maybe say, hey, here's a link to a YouTube video on this concept if you didn't understand it. So I think that the analytics side of it can give you that kind of ability.
Uh, Thank you. The next question would be, could you share some differences in social media strategies for schools across demography of India and Australia?
That is a very good question. I mean, I can't share them right now. What I was doing today is just giving an overview of the kind of approaches that are needed, no matter where you are. Okay, so that's lack of promotion and providing the educational content in digestible forms applies wherever. Okay, where you start getting into differences is perhaps the social media channel, but that is far secondary to getting the first approach right and understanding, hey, I want to share frequently asked questions, or I want to share experiences of students or teachers or whatever. That works on any channel. After you decide what stories you can tell, you can easily look up and see what channels are being used by other schools in your area or in your country, and go with that.
Thank you. We have a lot of questions, so I'm scrutinizing what would be the most relevant here. Um, so there is a question on video editing tools which you personally use, and any suggestions by you how you acquire these skills while creating content or suggesting content for schools.
Yeah, I'll actually put a link in the chat for the top video editing tools. So I'm just searching for that now. I think that's probably um,
Thank you very much.
the best way to share that, and it's from an organization called Buffer, which I use a lot. So that's the link. Video editing software, and that works, from a marketing perspective, but also, if you're teaching in the classroom, you can edit your videos this way.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing the link. Um,
Okay.
Professor, what about the cyber issue in e-marketing?
Security, I mean, or
Yeah, the cyber issue, yeah, security, or uh, I think there's a uh, lot of news about fake news, or mix
hmm.
any cyber related issues while we are e-marketing, authenticity of the content, etc.
Yeah, so that's certainly a risk. And if you once you open yourself up to be interactive and allow people to ask questions, there's certainly a reputational risk in that. What if somebody says, "Hey, my kid went here and they had a bad experience," and then everybody gets scared. But those kind of people are posting these types of things anyway, whether you're actually on social media to see it or not. Okay, so you may as well be on there so you can at least counter it and be proactive in managing it. So, yes, there are risks, but the benefits of engaging, and often what will happen is advocates of your organization will stand up for you and support you, even if someone does make a negative comment. You see it with all kinds of organizations, cafes, restaurants, um, lawyers, everything. People can leave bad reviews, but if you're truly providing a good service, the good reviews will outweigh that. And to just not go on because of that risk, is not feasible.
Thank you. Uh, my next question is around the slide, which I also found very interesting, wherein you shared the owned media and paid media. The slide wherein there are four sorts of contents. So, what is generally the time frame for shared media? And is there a defined way that this process happens one by one? Like you first have owned media and then paid media, or vice versa? Is there a specific time frame, and is there a specific process of one by one?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So first of all, you need to be on there with your own presence. But when you have that presence, say you have nothing to post, what you can easily start doing is sharing stuff from other people. So that sharing can start first. But obviously, if you want people to share your things, you need to start posting your own content. So an easy way to start is to set up your own, um, Twitter account or whatever channel, and that the channel choice depends on who you want to reach. So you probably need to do some research on where potential students, current students, whatever, what they would prefer. Once you go on there, follow key people in your industry and in the local community and start sharing, seeing what kinds of things they're posting about. And then that gives you an idea for the next, say, in 6 to 8 weeks, what you can start posting.
And how often do you post content, Professor? And is there a
Me?
specific time for viewing in your, like, is there a time preference you think?
Not enough. I don't post enough, but most organizations, I read some research this week. It's 4 times per week, 3 to 4 times per week. So that could be, that's obviously not 3 blog posts per week, but it could be, a picture on Instagram, blog post on average 3 to 4 times per week. So it's not a lot necessarily, but you have to keep that constant presence. And another thing is to not just schedule content. You have to be on there to respond to people's comments. People expect responses. And when people say, hey, that's a really cool video, respond and say thanks. Because if they said that to your face, you would say thanks. So if they say it online, you have to say thanks as well.
Sure. And is there a specific time as well that you have come to understand is more popular for posting content?
Yeah, that depends on the industry a lot. Um, So there's vast differences between channel and between industry. So like when, for example, if you start posting around lunchtime as a school, you want to monitor what engagements that's getting. So it's a bit about experimenting. That's the good thing with social media. You've got that data. So I haven't done research for schools in particular, but for, say, marketing professionals like me, lunchtime works really well. Maybe people are at their desk eating and they're checking social media. But for other organizations, the weekends work well. So it's about playing around with it. It's quite easy. You can find out within a couple of weeks what's working, what's not working.
Uh, while posting content, do you refer to any guidebook on, there are things that are not legal, there are things that are not allowed. Do you personally refer to a guidebook, or do you just use logic on posting? Because content can be sometimes taken in a different way.
Yeah, there are different guides. I can again share a link from social media, which would be really good for people to follow up with. Um, it's from an organization called HubSpot, and they're the main content marketing organization in the world. So it's in the chat now. For the people on YouTube, I'm sure that Naya can share that link with them if they don't see this chat. I'm not sure, but yeah, that's a
Sure, we'll.
really good
Thank you.
link.
Um, Again, this question is about being a school teacher in remote city of India, or being a school institution in remote city. How can digital marketing really help? And what kind of content do you would you recommend for the same?
Yeah, it's a difficult question, but it's not to be ignored. Okay, so you've got context there, and what you need to understand is what parents want and what students want. So what would help them? So I'm not in the school. Whoever's in the school, if they don't have a sense of what the local community would like them to do, that mindset is wrong, okay? Because the school should be embedded in the community and understand, hey, in this rural area, we want to see information around this, or they want the school to help out in this way. It could be very, very different from a urban school, but there are certainly needs. Even if people are not on social media on their computer, they're just on a phone, even if they're not highly literate, you can still create simple, short content, but it's very, very context specific, and it's up to the individual school to be aware of what environment they're in and respond to that. So don't just take what I've said today and start creating blog posts if your stakeholders won't read more than 3 lines. So that again, that's part of inbound approach, is knowing what people want.
Thank you. Uh, so there are a lot of questions around from the educators in the school around what kind of diversified information they could share to build their audience and create a diverse set of viewership. So other than sharing new information or sharing the activities that are actually happening.
Yeah. Um, well, I think the key is to shift away from a traditional um, teacher, or sorry, educator student one-way communication. Now, these guys are all in education. You're all in education, so you know as well as me how to engage an audience. But online, the trend tends to be to take an offline piece of content, so we just record it and put it online, and then get people to watch it. And when they don't watch it and don't prepare properly, then we get annoyed. And it really is up to us to change that mindset to say, let's split up this content a bit. Let's use a channel that the students are already on instead of forcing them onto something else. Let's be responsive to them. So I'm not saying we have to talk to students 24/7, 365 days a year, but we do have to get away from only being available when people want when we want to be available. So I'm not sure I can answer that specifically. Um, but yeah, that's some of the cultural things around it.
Yeah, I think it's very important. The cultural things around it, they are they could be the decision making factors. As the world is slowly becoming a digital world, would you suggest how a teacher can integrate the basic values while using digital platforms for content creation? The values like teamwork, sharing the resources, live and let live, empathy, and how do you try and practice and uh, inculcate these values in in your content or while teaching?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So something I didn't cover today about digital transformation is it's about more than technology. I did cover it a little bit, but it is about what digital actually means for the world, and it does mean less hierarchy, more equality, more fairness. And these are things that when you go this way, you do have to practice what you preach. So if you have values or principles as an organization, when you open up to digital, that will be tested more because it's less controlled. So, for example, if I'm teaching students, how do I ensure equality among all those students? I only respond to some people that engage a lot, but the others are left out. Simple things like this, you have to be really careful. The content you share, who do you share it from? Are you representing cultures, countries, different groups? So it's really, really important to consider. And it's another course that I teach around digital transformation, is that it's what the internet has actually done for society is far more than the technology. It's really changed the world. For example, with the COVID thing, how we respond, we know what's happening in every country. It's not just an individual thing. And the same with education. I can share material from India, from America, whatever. It's all relevant. And that's what students want.
Speaking of COVID, I have a very interesting question around the uh, different times of COVID. How has your strategy changed because of COVID in terms of digital marketing and social media? And any one successful thing, a strategy that you felt that got a good response as well, uh, which probably school could, imbibe, educators could imbibe.
WhatsApp groups.
WhatsApp
I don't
groups.
know if a lot of people are in WhatsApp groups, but it's a really good way to make people feel supported in real time. So unfortunately, it's more work, so the work environment is no longer 9 to 5, 5 days a week. Okay, still in some sectors they force that, but that's not really what people want. Right? If you think about your own experience, you want to be able to get an answer to a question when you ask that question. So for me, I've set up lots of WhatsApp groups with students, with staff, with other businesses, just to support them in this time when I can't have face-to-face meetings, so that really they feel they can ask a little question and I can deal with it very quickly, rather than sending an email, which is just that extra step of formality. It's something I would really encourage, that real-time communication. It really makes people feel supported. Yes, it means you're on your phone more, and I see a lot of questions about people like, is being on your phone bad? Is it bad for your health? Is it people are addicted? Um,
Yeah,
yeah, there's that side of it. I can't really get into that today. Okay.
absolutely.
But I mean, it's certainly really important to be available, particularly in these times.
And as an educator, your content has been liked by many, and as I speak a word, every single word, there is another new question which pops up. So people have really, the educators especially have actually complimented on your content and interactive session of yours, a little different from the other sessions as well. So what kind of how do you create interactive content? There are, obviously we know the basics, like have a link on the YouTube, one of the YouTube videos, and videos generally, they create I think attention span of the viewers a little more, makes it a little exciting. What else do you use apart from videos, generally while you're taking a session?
So is this when I'm teaching in class, do you think? Is that the,
Yes.
yeah. Um, I mean, obviously, I will create my own videos. I will also share videos. I use infographics a lot and get people to comment. So I guess the video I showed or asked people to watch at the start was not quite an infographic, presented information in that way, and I just get people to say, like, what did you find interesting? And then that leads into a discussion. And asking a question like that, people are more free to answer rather than, do you think this is right or wrong? Another thing I use is like polling, so you can easily, WebEx does it, but in Zoom or in Facebook, you can ask little polls, little questions, and get people to vote. People love that kind of thing, and that's a good discussion point as well. And another thing I do is I get students in teams to create their own videos. So again, coming back to this, letting people share their own content. So they will, if I ask them a question, they can have maybe a week or a few days to go away and create their own little interview and send it and post it in the group. And that's, it's students like to hear from other students as much as they like to hear from the professor.
Thank you for that answer. So, there is an educator asking, can we develop moral values among growing youth using social media? Um, and any suggestions as to how, if you use it? As well, there are a lot of negative thoughts, especially during this COVID time,
Mm.
and they are being shared on social media, and it's a combination of content. So, filtering negative content becomes hard.
Yeah. Um, the only way you can filter negative content is more positive content. So and again, negative content in the sense that people may be struggling, that's not something that you want to hide. So if people are struggling with issues, mental health issues, or struggling to learn, you being on social media or being in a WhatsApp group or something will make you more aware of that and be more able to deal with it. And if something comes up, then you have a meeting at the school with the colleagues and ask. But if you're not on there, you will not know. If you're just posting a video to YouTube and not allowing comments, okay, it's easy, but it's not an experience for anyone. So I do think that, yes, there are negative things that people are going through. There are also negative things people will post, like, and that's happened to me. Students have said, like, don't like this video or whatever, but then most students do, okay, and other people answer, and it's fine. You just have to be. That's just the way of the world. If you open yourself up for communication, you're going to get some negative, you're going to get some positive.
I guess a little bit of trolling in the digital age is fine, and you got to
Yeah,
deal
I
with
mean, there
it
should be more
with a
training
maturity.
at a young age around digital literacy and being aware. Certainly, it's different from when I grew up, but that's a key point to train people in responsibilities being online. So that's calling out fake news, for example, and you know giving credit to valuable news. So most people just are what we call lurkers online. They don't really do anything. They just watch things. It really is important as a digital citizen to comment and like on things you find interesting and report things or don't interact with things that are damaging. And that will push the good stuff to the top and the bad stuff to the bottom. We can't complain about fake news if we don't engage with the real news.
Interestingly, there are businesses in India wherein they call out fake news, to help the audience. So yesterday I came across this platform. Um,
Okay.
while we're speaking of best practices, is there any blog that you would suggest or a resource which you refer to share best practices while we share content, make content, post content, uh, or make content while for teaching?
Um, for teaching, it's slightly different than what I talked about today, but that link I shared earlier would be um, useful, but you would have to apply it to teaching. So I
Sure,
do
we'll
see a lot
share
of
that.
yeah, I'll reshare it. I do see a lot of questions about how to actually teach with this stuff. Again, my presentation is more about the strategic level of how to
Strategic.
manage a school, but you can apply these things. Content marketing still applies in any form of communication, whether that's educator to student or school to parent or whatever. So I think that link again I shared is really really useful. Gives you different um, approaches, different types of media to suit different types of purposes.
Thank you. There is another question on how often is it advisable to make a shift in the voice of the campaign so we can reach out to all our stakeholders at the strategic level, or is there no set rule?
That's an interesting question. For these types of campaigns or this type of communication, really it should last no longer than 6 months, and then you should kind of review it. You should be reviewing it as you go. Like if infographics or blog posts are working better than student interviews, then you can change as you go, or vice versa. But then after 6 months, we have a review and we just say like, how's it going? What kind of engagement are we getting? Are we reaching the right people? So the voice should be constant, like whether we want to be approachable or we want to be seen as really educational and information provider. We want to be friendly. This type of thing you work out and you stick to it. But every 6 months you just monitor how that's going and you make kind of tactical changes.
Thank you. So, speaking of strategic level, how often does a strategy change or should change, considering times are changing very, very fast? Uh,
Well, that's why I really want you to focus on the inbound philosophical or strategic level, because then it doesn't matter if Facebook goes away and TikTok comes in. These things don't really matter. The philosophy is still the same. Okay, there's implications for the type of media you will create, and you need to learn quickly about the different technicalities of the platform, but do not get caught up in platforms. Get caught up in what you want to say and the story you want to tell. So again, every 6 months, you just have a little check in with your team. What how things are going. Um, but that kind of brainstorming session, if you haven't done it already, on like what can we talk to students about, or what can we talk to industry connections or parents or whatever, that has to happen first, and then you decide on a way forward, a voice, and you stick to that.
Thank you. How often do you create content for your various channels? And what has been your experience like during the early stage? Because we have a lot of educators in India who are actually creating content for the first time because they were all used to of
Mm.
traditional uh, blackboard classroom teaching. That was their uh, almost only delivery platform. So they want to know from your experience, noting that they really like your session. So what has your experience been like, and how have you really changed? How often do you change your content?
Yeah, that's a good question, and thanks everyone for the positive comments and questions. It's really encouraging. Not enough. It's a hard work, right? I mean, I can record videos and share them. I can write articles, which I do often. Um, but you can never be doing too much of this. I mean, it could be I could employ someone full time to change my articles to infographics or to follow me around with a camera and, take a picture of this me doing this webinar. I mean, I can share it across social media, but this type of thing doesn't happen. So I think the more important thing is just realizing opportunities for content. A lot of people will go to a conference or have an event at a school and not take one picture. And then what do you put? If you go on social media and say, really interesting event last night, no pictures or no link or anything like this, then it may as well not have happened. That's an exaggeration, but you need to understand when there are opportunities for content. Um, and just those real life events that you're running, whether it's even in the classroom, if you run a really interesting case study session, interviewing students, taking pictures to share that online to see, so people outside can see what happens in your school or in your organization. That's really interesting. So at a kind of real time level, you need your phone on you all the time. At a more strategic level, like, do I want to write a blog post? Probably one a month, that kind of thing. Um, but as I said, I don't want to intimidate people. Any little changes you can make to do anything that I said in the presentation is a step forward.
Absolutely. Thank you. And this is the last question. Speaking of strategic level, advice on content creation, is there a strategic uh, regularity rhythm that you advise? How you shared when you are making a strategy or for a brand for educators? Is there going to be a strict timeline, as in uh, 3 times in a week, and let's say definitely between this time span, do we create content in this specific fashion?
Yeah, there's a model I can share. I'm just going to try and find it, which I always use creating a strategy. Um,
While you're finding it, I'm receiving so many compliments on the chat.
that's good.
Good session, great session. It was really fruitful. Thank you, Mr. Paul Harrigan, for your very informative session. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
great
I can see
links,
them. I can
very
see them
informative.
too.
Yeah,
Um, I'm going to put these
it's
comments
getting.
on my CV.
Yeah,
There's so many nice comments. It's hiding my link. I put my link in.
yes.
Uh,
Even the questions are getting lost. I'm quite overwhelmed trying to figure out the questions. Oh my God, look at that.
it's crazy. I shared a link at 28 minutes past, which is a nice strategic model which walks you through 4 steps if you're doing this at
Sure.
an organizational level. First of all, it's who do we want to talk to? Second of all, what type of content? Third of all, who do we want to connect with? So who do we want to share this content? So influencers. And fourth, how do we measure it? So some of those things I showed you, those tools. So it's actually, if you walk through that way, it's not too complicated. It's just thinking about it makes it complicated.
Thank you. Well, the screen is popping up with more and more compliments. I don't think there is a closing required from my side, but I'll still do it for on behalf of Austrade. So, I'm absolutely sure all the participants enjoyed the session. Thank you for a fantastic response. We would now like to conclude this masterclass by thanking all of you for your participation today and wonderful questions. A very big thank you to Dr. Paul for his time and a wonderful presentation. Um, we will send you the recording of the masterclass in the next couple of days. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.